The history of MKUltra.
April 13th, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles gave a speech about the dangers of communism and the war of the mind. The federal government was haunted by the fear of communism and believed it spread rapidly at this time because the Soviets mastered the art of mind control. Sandwiched between the aftermath of World War II and the beginnings of the Cold War, intelligence agencies believed foreign brainwashing could indoctrinate the American people. As a result, a classified project was created to emulate the communist mind control programs, effectively fighting fire with fire.
How do you even come to that conclusion? I guess to the people, like, oh, the idea of communism, like, who would want to have communism, right? So the idea of communism was, I guess they thought that no human being would actually think communism is a good thing, so they used mind control. I don't know how you get to that conclusion of, yeah, I think Russia has mastered the arts of mind control, and they are planning to put the American people under their control. What? I think the whole idea of, I guess, this era is just crazy to me, on how scared people were, or like how scared they were of communism, and they thought it was just going to infect the country somehow. I feel like that's just crazy how scared they were. I feel like maybe it's because I wasn't there at the time, but I feel like it wasn't that big of a deal. You know, there's still measures they could have taken besides trying to use mind control to stop this.
There are several speculations as to why MKUltra began, but one fact remains. People in power justified pushing the boundaries of known science and warfare by committing human rights violations under the guise of intelligence. MKUltra's clandestine tests took place in universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical centers.
And they were so scared of communism that they were willing to do illegal experiments on people to figure out a way to stop it.
All across the United States and Canada. One of the most famous testing sites was the Allen Memorial Institute, or the Ravenscrag, at McGill University in Montreal. These top-secret experiments and procedures were led by Sidney Gottlieb, the United States spy master and mad chemist who financed and developed, quote, techniques that would crush the human psyche to the point that it would admit anything. MKUltra was preceded by Project Bluebird and Project Artichoke, two projects originating in the 1940s. The goal of Project Bluebird was to train subjects through hypnosis and behavior modification so that it would be impossible for enemies of the United States to extract vital information. The goal of Project Artichoke was to examine if a human is capable of attempting an assassination without hesitation. Methods used include hypnosis, forced substance addiction, and forced substance withdrawal. MKUltra.
How do you test that? If someone's willing to, like, assassinate someone without even hesitate, does that just go back to the whole thing of, like, how they were using mind control, and if they were under that mind control, if they would try to fight it or not? I don't know. I can't wrap my head around the idea of so many people being like, yeah, they're using mind control. Let's we gotta figure out a way to stop that.
The final evolution of its 1940s predecessors employed a variety of techniques to influence the minds and brains of its subjects, including the covert administration of high doses of psychoactive substances, in most cases LSD, also known as lysergic acid diethylamide, a powerful hallucinogen. This CIA project used a cocktail of chemicals and drugs such as barbiturates, amphetamines, and hallucinogens to put their subjects in a comatose state, while also violently snapping them back to reality. This was carried out by injecting a barbiturate in a subject's arm and then an amphetamine in the other, often resulting in death. One of the main scientists responsible for the horrific practices of MKUltra was Dr.
So how many times did they do this? Because it often just led to death. So how many people do you think died because they decided to do that? I'm not gonna say it's a crazy amount, but like, you think it's over 10? Or do you think at that point they're like, well, you know, I feel like it probably is a little over 10. I don't know, maybe I'm totally underscaling it, and it's fucking like 40 people died from this experiment alone.
Donald Ewan Cameron. Cameron invented 2 medical torture techniques that were repeated until the unwilling subject's mind was effectively broken, though not all subjects received the same treatment or torture. First, Cameron utilized a technique known as psychic driving. Patients were frequently exposed to hundreds of thousands of repeats of a single remark, which would theoretically change their behavior. Then, the subject met the wrath of Cameron's second technique. Depatterning was the chronological successor to psychic driving, which is when the test subject undergoes massive doses of electroconvulsive therapy, combined with equally large doses of psychedelic drugs. One can only imagine what truly happened to some of these people, where they are now, and if they remember anything.
That's what I'm thinking, dude. Being one of these people has to be fucking terrifying. And I know with MKUltra, a lot of the people weren't even like most of the people, if any, even wanted to do this, right? They just fucking, like, I don't know how exactly they got people for it, but I know it wasn't like, no one like fucking consented to this, to be placed under like drugs and then fucking tortured pretty much. But I wonder what that experience was even like, because like drugs and being tortured are already like pretty heavy experiences, so both of those at the same time, I wonder like if you even notice, like, you probably don't even know what the fuck is going on. Like, I feel like maybe you're under such a heavy amount of drugs you don't even notice the torturing part. I don't know how that would work.
If they survived.
Tell me about the acid.
I'd rather not. It's a bad trip. It's a bad trip. It was a bad trip. The pain was so excruciating. Felt like somebody was sticking me with a million pins. You know, just everywhere. Oh, it just...
Maybe it was. Maybe that is someone who was like part of it and survived. I don't know what they did with the people that did. They just release them back and like, all right, thanks for letting us test on you. You can go back to your wife and kids now. How did that work? I feel like most of the people would have been like homeless people or some shit. I guess it's said at the start like prisons and stuff. So like just hospitals. So, like, just people who were in prison or some people who were in the hospital, they would just, like, take random people in there and do those experiments.
You want to stop for me?
With any classified project, intelligence agencies across the globe go through every effort to stay hidden. One method of cryptic language used by the CIA is known as cryptonyms. A cryptonym is a code name or code word used by the CIA to reference operations, people, projects, or other agencies. All CIA cryptonyms that are now used online were used between the 50s and 80s, which means it is more than likely the entire system has been replaced. All that exists online are partial lists and probable definitions. There is no way to know for certain the exact meanings and extent of these declassified projects. Each CIA cryptonym has a 2-character prefix known as a digraph, which identifies a region or function. But over time, certain digraphs underwent changes. MKUltra is a cryptonym that denotes the following: MK equals TSS, or the Technical Services Staff, and Ultra being the highest classification of intelligence during World War II. There are plenty of unidentified cryptonyms, which lends itself to the fact that there is so much information kept from us, and we may never know it.
Wow, so there's still stuff, I mean, but like a lot, there's still a good amount of stuff that just we don't know, like MKUltra, that could be the same as bad or worse somehow, that we'll just never fucking know about because we won't be able to read these, cryptonids? Is that what they're called? Cryptid something? Wow, and there's just like a whole giant thing of that. So I guess anything with Ultra in the name, because that was the most classified or like important files or whatever for during World War II, surely like you go through those, right? How do you even get access to this shit? You know what I mean? Like, this is probably pretty private. And then also, like, you know, you gotta have someone who, like, leaks this stuff, too. The Monkey Puzzle
Elizabeth
Tree.
Nixon is a Canadian writer and journalist who, in 1994, published the novel The Monkey Puzzle, an account of CIA brainwashing trials in Montreal during the 1950s and 60s. The height of MKUltra. She explains that her mother was under the care of none other than Ewan Cameron. By this time, Cameron was head of the American Psychiatric Association. He had been a friend of Alan Dulles, who, if you remember, is the man responsible for the genesis of MKUltra. In fact, they shared a long history together, dating back to the Nuremberg trials. In 1977, after President Ford's executive order, under the release of the U.S. Freedom of Information Act, Cameron was discovered to have conducted the most extreme mind control trials, employing massive amounts of shock treatments and drugs such as PCP and LSD.
So this guy's already done, he's already done experiments and shit with mind control. So is that's why they got him for this? They were like, well, you know, this guy's experienced in the mind control field. So, hey, you know, go out there and do your shit. In fact, we'll help you, actually. Also, I wonder if they found, like, he found really anything. I doubt it. Maybe some other stuff that's not exactly, like, mind control, but maybe some other, like, psychic type shit, you know what I mean?
You may be wondering, did Cameron's extreme methods lead to the cure of cancer or Alzheimer's or anything? Well, according to journalist Sid Taylor in an article from 1992, Cameron used a toxin known as Curare in order to debilitate his patients while conducting research. This toxin was used by South American natives to poison their hunting arrows. When applied to the body, it shuts down the neuromuscular system. The article continues by saying, although the patient was prepared by both prolonged sensory isolation, repeated depatterning, and recorded receiving 101 days of psychic driving, no favorable results were obtained. So as you can guess, this was around the time Dr. Cameron fashioned his own invasive forms of therapy, explained before as depatterning and psychic driving.
Nothing?
Much of this information has only been disclosed relatively recently, since the CIA has admitted to funding human behavior control research at 150 institutions, including 44 universities and a variety of hospitals, prisons, and drug rehab clinics. Remember, these are just the ones declassified.
That's crazy.
In 1953, while attending a CIA retreat, a scientist working for the agency drank a cocktail that had been spiked with LSD. His name was Frank Olson. A few days later, on November 28, 1953, Olson allegedly committed suicide by falling from the window of a New York City hotel room. 41 years after his death, in 1994, Frank Olson's family decided to have a second autopsy performed. A forensics team discovered injuries on the body that were most likely caused before the fall. Following lengthy legal proceedings, Olson's family was awarded a $700.
That long ago, though? Like, how many years after? 24, did it say? Like, that's so hard to... Isn't, like, the longer, the body's dead for, the harder it is to, exactly figure out all that type of shit? How does that work? I don't know how, like, that... After that amount of time, how are you still able to figure out, oh yeah, this probably happened before he died or anything? You know what I mean?
William Colby, and the person named for administering the LSD to Frank Olson was none other than Sidney Gottlieb, by this time known as the Black Sorcerer and Dirty Trickster. Ask yourself, if there was zero truth to the conspiracy surrounding Olson's death, why would the sitting president and CIA director give a personal apology? Why would
that is pretty weird.
The United States court ruled to award Olson's family with what would almost be $9 million in today's money. One of the side effects of being a mad scientist like Sidney Gottlieb is being bald, which is why today's video is sponsored by Keeps.
Yep.
While a college student at Stanford University, Ken Kesey, author of the 1962 novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, volunteered for MKUltra LSD experiments.
So they did have people who volunteered. So this guy volunteered
to promote the drug by hosting acid tests, which were LSD-fueled parties. These parties incorporated drug use with musical performances by bands such as the Grateful Dead, as well as psychedelic effects. These parties influenced the early development of hippie culture and sparked the psychedelic drug scene in the 1960s. The dichotomy of Frank Olson and Ken Kesey is, on one hand, you have a guy who could have been murdered by the CIA because of his involvement with their psychoactive drug testing, while another guy involved in similar testing went on to spark hippie culture. It wasn't just a good time for the hippies, though. Operation Midnight Climax was an MKUltra.
So that other guy who sparked it, was he also part of MKUltra? Like, he was also, like, maybe he volunteered or something? And then after that, he just inspired the entire, like, hippie culture of fucking, tripping balls and shit while, listening to some music.
George White, a CIA agent working under Operation Midnight Climax, wrote to Sidney Gottlieb in 1971, stating, "Of course, I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was
fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, and cheat, steal, deceive, rape, and pillage, with the sanction and blessing of the All-Highest?"
It would be sooner than later that the truth would be revealed, and the intelligence communities would be made to answer for their illegal and inhumane enterprise. You see, in 1972, the Watergate scandal triggered paranoia amongst...
Wait. But I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun. So they liked doing this? There were, like, people who were like, yeah, this shit was fun to do. I love putting, people on acid and fucking tripping and shit. And then, yeah, that's obviously gonna raise some red flags. Like, oh yeah, this was fun. I love doing this, actually.
In 1972, the Watergate scandal triggered paranoia amongst Washington and the already weary American people. This led to newly appointed CIA Director Richard Helms ordering all MKUltra files destroyed, coupled with anecdotal stories such as U.S. Army servicemen spying on civilians spread, eventually culminating in a New York Times article by Seymour Hersh in 1974.
So they had them all, like, they had all the files and shit destroyed?
Seymour Hersh was already a well-known investigator, as he gained worldwide recognition for covering the Watergate scandal and by exposing the My Lai massacre, for which he was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for international reporting. Many elected officials, journalists, whistleblowers, and investigators, like Seymour Hersh, were following a rat's trail that eventually led them to an entire den. Hersh's New York Times article claimed the CIA had violated its charter by spying on anti-war activists. His story is credited as a major factor in the establishment of the Church Committee, which was created to investigate illegal federal intelligence operations. However, it ended up taking the combined might of the Church Committee, Pike Committee, and Rockefeller Commission to find the truth of MKUltra after discovering documents that failed to be destroyed in Helms's purge.
Okay, so he ordered them to be destroyed, but for some reason they were failed to be destroyed.
These three forces would pressure not only the CIA, but the NSA, FBI, and IRS to answer for any wrongdoing or illegal activity. Thus, in 1976, 3 years after MKUltra was halted, Executive Order 11905 was drafted and signed by President Gerald Ford after the Church Committee and Pike Committee revealed classified information concerning the United States. This executive order would be an effort to outlaw, restructure, and reform much of the intelligence community, creating greater checks and balances to ensure that any and all activities are in conformity with the Constitution and United States laws. Even people to this day are still concerned that this was not enough justice and that intelligence agencies still work above the law.
I haven't worried about it. Your question again, what would I have thought had I known that
Any of these substances would
have been given to
unwitting persons.
You mean a hostile agent of another government?
No, I mean,
that was probably one of the things they had in mind.
I mean, testing it out on an American citizen.
I guess I must seem very, very cold-blooded about this, but I don't recall ever having been very much preoccupied with that issue.
The national security.
Huh. That's... So, yeah, I guess they're saying, like, some people believe, and it probably wasn't, there wasn't really much punishment for the people that were involved in MKUltra. Right? So, like, this could just happen again. And, shit, we might not know about it. Could have already happened again. And, who knows?
Security agencies' capability at any time could be turned around on the American people, and no American would have any privacy left. Such is the capability to monitor everything. Telephone conversations, telegrams, it doesn't matter. There would be no place to hide. If a dictator ever took over, the NSA could enable it to impose total tyranny, and there would be no way to fight back. Frank Church, founder of the Church Committee. Today, MKUltra method.
I mean, that's kind of already a thing, though, like, oh, fucking our phones and smart fridges are spying on us. Like, is that really that big of a deal, though? Maybe, like, if you're someone who has nothing to hide, at the end of the day, I don't give a shit if someone's looking through my phone camera while I'm taking a shit. They're the one who has to see that, right? That's not my problem at that point. Listen, if that's what's going on, I'm unaffected. Can't do nothing about it, you know what I mean? It's whatever.
We'll move on to an astronaut named Heidi Marie Stefansson Piper, who fainted during a press conference, supposedly being hypnotized before she could reveal secrets on UFOs. Though these references to MKUltra are enjoyable, they are loosely based in reality.
I doubt it. I don't know. The whole idea of UFOs, like, do you think we've ever seen a UFO before? Like, on Earth? I don't know. I feel like there hasn't really been an alien that's come to our planet. You know what I mean? I just feel like the possibility of that, I feel like we would know. I mean, the government might know, shit. But I feel like if that really happened, it would be such a big deal. Because you see all these fucking fake videos of shit, like just, there's this floating ball in the sky, it's a UFO. It's obviously fake, but I don't know. I doubt she was fucking drugged and she fainted because she was about to leak UFO sightings or something like that. I mean, shit, who knows? But I don't know. I feel like it's just a coincidence. I feel like that's just people being skeptical.
There is no way of knowing if the CIA has stopped all illegal domestic activity against civilians. MKUltra may have evolved or rebranded itself, hidden deep within the CIA web, where no one would dare enter. One can speculate that CIA counterintelligence strategies have become more desperate and covert, adding to the fear that there may be some project out there worse than MKUltra. After all, science and technology have only advanced since the 1950s. If contemporary projects similar to MKUltra were to get green-lit, they would without a doubt be more effective and efficient.
That's what I was talking about earlier, is that, I don't want to say easily, but there could be something out there, like a different project, that we just have no idea about. And it could be even worse than MKUltra. And then at that point, but that's just like a possibility. Like, I doubt, there's no way obviously the government's probably gonna still do, illegal experiments, but I don't know. I feel like there's something, and yeah, just the technology advance from then to now. I feel like at that point, there's gotta be, some other experiment that we just don't know about. That may not be as bad, but it's still probably not great.